gentlemen, dear fellows, a big applause for the head of BD and Club 3 AI Portugal representative at the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, Vinicius Ribeiro. The CEO at Interstellar, Louis De Bonnecaze. I did my best. Bonjour, bienvenue. The CEO at the Blind Boxes, Anita Angelica Moore. And the one that is going to moderate this last roundtable, the founder and managing partner at Plush Living, Rahul Jagtiani. But this is here. You don't need this anymore.
No.
But you do need something else before you start. This is the last one, so I need music again. André, please. You might need something. Because Portuguese people, especially Madeiran people, this is for you. We used to be really good on hospitality. And there's a lot of culture between our people, like this music. It's from a man called Max. Wait. And because for sure you're going to be talking about wine, and this might be an important moment. Of course, this is not the independence of Madeira yet, but the truth is, in
We're the lucky ones,
the United States, and probably the one that is coming from the United States is the only one that is alcohol-free. So I don't know if she's going to be toasting or not. Yes, I look at your social media. So I know that you don't drink alcohol, but at least you can make a toast. 1774, 4th July, they celebrated a toast of the independence of the United States with Madeira wine. So allow me, please. This is just a toast, I'm getting too excited. You know, not a full glass for sure. Anita,
I don't trust
it's up
how
to
the
you.
panel
You
talk
can
is going to go
just
after
make a
this.
toast. I know, I do respect that. And for you. In any case, you are the moderator. In any case, if anyone wants to fill up the cup, feel free.
So, yeah, let's raise
let's
a toast
get to
first. Let's raise a toast first to a fantastic day so far with excellent speakers and lots of learnings. And a lot of the discussions have been technical so far, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot. But this one's going to be a bit lighter. It's about lifestyle, Web3, and of course, lots of wine. So let's just toast first and let's begin. So I want to start off with Vinny at the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. You know, in 2020, 2021, we saw the whole NFT summer, right? And NFTs have been the gateway drug for normal people who have not been associated with Web3 technology to get into this space. And since then, we've seen this rush of different lifestyle brands that have come in to this space, be it travel, be it wine, be it art, be it fashion. So I want to get an overview from you on the different kinds of dApps that are being built on Ethereum L1, and what are some of the different kinds of businesses that you're seeing so far?
Amazing, thanks. So first, I'm very happy to be here in Madeira, this blockchain event. It's great that now I am able to talk about blockchain, not only in the continent, but also in this beautiful island, and it's great for fostering blockchain. So regarding dApps use cases, I think that it's easy to argue that the most relevant use case is finance. It was the first use case, it's the most relevant so far, but it should not be limited to finance only. Ethereum is very finance focused, but when we consider that there are other chains and also layer 2s, we can think that other verticals can also benefit from blockchain. And I'll bring a few examples here. So the first one is gaming. It was, as mentioned previously today, Vitalik Buterin was mad, very pissed, because his assets in one of the games that he used to play vanished. And he had worked so hard to get those assets. From one day, he lost all those assets. And that's why he worked and helped contribute and create Ethereum. Besides gaming, and you have the benefits of holding your assets, you can also have NFTs. We're going to talk about a lot of NFTs today. You can have digital identities. You can have solutions linked to IoT. You can have solutions linked to voting. You can have many different solutions. And I think that blockchain in general can be very beneficial for a community and all the use cases that we can have on the technology.
Right, and can you just also tell us some of the different other kinds of industries that are getting, besides gaming, that you're noticing that they're coming into this space and building on L1?
When we talk about L1, Ethereum L1, usually it's a very expensive and limited to scale.
Yeah.
So usually when we talk about Ethereum mainnet, it's mostly finance. And we talk about finance, there are many different uses for finance. So we have not only exchanges, but aggregators, liquidity, farming, yielding. So maybe you're not familiar with all those names. But when we discuss about other use cases, usually they pivot from Ethereum L1 to alt L1s or layer 2s, because it's so expensive if you want to play or if you want to trade NFTs, and the NFT is not a very valuable or very expensive or pricey NFT. It's very hard for users to pay the gas fees to trade on Ethereum layer 1. So most likely they are going to pivot to layer 2s or alt L1s.
Right, and moving to Louis. Louis, you've actually built your wine NFT marketplace on Ethereum L1, and perhaps that's one of the challenges you're facing with different kinds of wine NFTs. So I want you to first tell us what exactly your wine marketplace does and some of the challenges you're facing on Ethereum L1.
Thank you, Rahul, for introduction. So here I'm representing the very tangible industry in this panel, that is to say the wine and spirit industry. So our marketplace, Intercellar, basically is selling fine wine and spirits through NFTs. So it means that beside every physical bottle, we put a digital twin of the bottle. And then we keep the physical bottle in the warehouse or in the wineries directly. And then the people can trade, exchange, or resell the bottles, the NFT, while the physical bottles remain at the winery. It's very important in that industry that there is a very big secondary market. So the NFTs fits to the wine industry markets, but also to the markets where there is a big secondary market. And by the way, I would say that the wine is very good. So we are more on the high range products, that is to say French wines, which are, in my opinion, the best wine. But in Portugal, you have the best fortified wines, like in Madeira and Porto. And we started to use the layer 1 of Ethereum, because of the high range product that we are selling. But what we face is very high gas fees. So when you are trading Bored Apes and virtual assets, it's not a problem, especially when the price is very high. But when you have physical products, even if it's high range products, if you have to pay 20 or 30 euros for every mint or secondary market trade, it's a problem. So that is why we are thinking about using layer 2, like Polygon or Arbitrum, for example. So here it's an issue for us. But I think that it's the best blockchain to use when you are in the luxury industry.
Yeah, and I'll come back to the wine NFTs in just a bit. And Anita, you started off building blind boxes, and it's a marketplace for art NFTs, and you built it on Binance Smart Chain, right, to begin with, and then you pivoted, and the business model has pivoted. So what are some of the challenges that you've noticed over the last couple of years, A, from a chain perspective, and B, just from a business perspective in how this space has evolved so far?
Yeah, what a great question. So when we initially launched our NFT...
It's the wine so far.
When we initially launched the platform, we launched on Binance Smart Chain, given some of the network effects we had, some of our advisors, we had really good connections in the space, and it's also that the price point of NFTs we were selling matched the price point of BNB in terms of transactions. But, the nature of the business at that time was to bring in very large celebrities. So this was in 2021, right at the beginning of the NFT boom. And at that point, the place to play was to bring in the biggest names you could, whether it was a brand or a television show, a celebrity, everyone was interested in NFTs. And if you could bring them to your platform, at that point, it was very desirable. And we found that those sort of people wanted Ethereum. So we'll say I'm going to categorize them as Web 2 people, but it's not always separate, but these are people who are traditional household names, you might say. And the only blockchain they had heard of at this point is Ethereum. That's the gold standard. That's what they hear. That's what they've seen other celebrities do. So they assume that that's the best one. And then in our initial conversations, I would oftentimes urge them to consider other chains. But for them, the brand of Ethereum was stronger than anything I could convey to them. And when I would say, but BNB is less expensive, it's going to be great, they're like, cheap. They heard cheap instead of less expensive. And sometimes translating that, covering that gap was a bit difficult. So we offer now 3 chains that we're on, but it's still oftentimes a challenge when you're dealing with someone who's outside of the space to even really convey the difference between the chains. So to this day, I still have, we'll say, people and friends and brands I've worked with who will only use Ethereum. And I don't know if that's the wrong decision, but sometimes, especially given the price point, they should consider another layer, for example.
It depends on the community at the beginning.
Yeah, it depended on the community, but it was actually the pressure for the chains was coming more from the types of projects and brands and celebrities that we were bringing in. But it was a communication gap barrier that it was difficult to cross.
Was there a learning curve with a lot of these artists, at least back then, and I'm sure there still is, because first they need to, get a MetaMask wallet going. They're artists, right? They're not Web3 natives necessarily. They're artists, and all they understand is their craft. And what are the challenges that you faced in terms of getting these guys to perhaps get their MetaMask wallet going, transfer some sort of, in your case would be the BNB token, and so on and so forth. It's very challenging, and it's very intimidating for someone who's not from this space to venture into that direction.
Yeah, I'm laughing because there's so much time spent on hand-holding in a way that's very necessary, because when you're working with an artist, a creator or a brand or even a Web3 project, unless they're crypto native, it feels like a bigger gap to cross. And if you've been in this space for a while, you assume that setting up a MetaMask is an easy thing, but the amount of time, late nights, early mornings, just on video calls with people, just trying to have them trust what's going on, explaining everything along the way. We've made countless guides. The learning curve is still quite big to this day.
And Vinny, how are you solving for this problem? Because in my opinion, for the next billion users to be onboarded onto Web3 blockchain technology, people don't really care what technology they're using, right? If I'm sending you a WhatsApp message, or if I'm using ChatGPT, I don't really care about the underlying technology. I just want my problem solved. So you won't even know when a billion users are going to be onboarded, because those guys don't really care about the underlying tech. They just care that their problem is solved. So how are you solving for the infrastructure and the UX and the UI problem that Ethereum currently faces and Web3 currently faces?
Amazing. I totally agree that when we are using an app, or you are using Uber, or you are using WhatsApp, you don't need to understand how the TCP/IP protocol works. And ideally, the user experience is good when you don't know the underlying technology.
Yeah, exactly.
And unfortunately, we are a bit far, but we are closer than we were yesterday. So I think that today we have 3 main challenges to overcome and bring mass adoptions. The first one was very well discussed in the previous panel, is regulation. I totally agree with the previous panelists when they say that no regulation is better than bad regulation, but good regulation can be awesome, because it reduces uncertainty, it reduces the perception of risk for companies, especially enterprise, to adopt blockchain. But I'm not going into the detail, because they have discussed this much better than I could do. The second one is usability. So the user experience is not great. But we are moving forward and getting better because we are reducing costs, we are improving scalability issues, so we can have more transactions per second. The gas fees are going to get lower and lower. The storage is going to be easier, simpler, and cheaper. And also, for instance, the private key management is very hard today. So with account abstractions, we're going to improve this experience as well. And
Tell us about account abstraction and what it solves for.
I can't go very deep because I'm not very technical.
Just an overview.
So today, if you manage your private keys and you lose your private keys, they are gone. So account abstraction, you're going to have programmable smart contracts that you can have other ways to recover your keys, like social recovery keys, and this is going to improve a lot. So today, Web2 user, if you just forget your password, you click forget my password, you can get a new password very quickly, very simply. It's a seamless experience today. And we need to move closer to that experience, because also for individual users, but for enterprise users, you cannot tell an enterprise user, oh, you know that hundreds of millions that you have, well, we lost private key, and your funds are gone. Or now going to the third challenge that we have is security. You cannot tell. So you had $500 million invested in crypto, but it was hacked, I'm sorry, and it's gone forever. So until we solve these three gaps, I think that we're going to have a hard time. So regulation, user experience, and security. And on security, just a quick comment. The company that I work today is trying to bridge this gap, it's Cube3. So we monitor and we try to avoid hacks. So you can enable blocking capabilities on your smart contracts and you can avoid hacks. It's free, anyone can sign up, Cube3 AI, anyone can check it for free.
And Louis, one of the issues with your industry specifically, alluding to his point, is your typical wine collector is an older demographic, right? It's not typically an 18 or 20-year-old who's probably very technologically savvy or a Web3 native. Now, you're trying to tap into the collector market, and these guys are maybe 40, 50 years old, and they probably have no clue about Web3. What are the challenges that you're facing as far as onboarding those guys with the money to purchase some of your NFTs?
So here it's a first point, because you said first, of course, you told about the technology, the utility, and then the security. I would focus a little bit about the utility, because of course, if there are some utilities in like trading cards, video games, of course, it's useful, but we need to have some utility in the tangible world. So for me, it's one of the main challenge, as you said, is to onboard the current customers that are not in the Web3 space. So for me, the main challenge is the mass adoption, as you said. We don't mind if today we are using internet, we don't mind if it's HTML, CSS. We just need to have a good user experience. So, for example, because this is something that I'm doing, our main challenge is to make it the more simple and not to talk about the technology. So, for instance, to onboard those wine connoisseurs that don't know about the Web3, we don't use the word NFT, for instance. We use digital twin. We accept fiat currency, of course, cryptocurrency, but of course, fiat currency is very important. And some other way, for example, is to allow the people to have a wallet and to buy NFTs only through an email address. They don't need to have a MetaMask and a seed phrase and so on. So the main challenge is to avoid the technology, and in our tangible industry, it's a big challenge.
But what problem is the wine NFT solving for, let's say, wine producers and consumers? So for wine producers, they care about selling wine, right?
Yeah.
And one can also argue, you mentioned about the digital twin, one can also argue that the true blue passionate wine producer and wine consumer probably does not want the best bottles of wine in a warehouse somewhere, but the wine producer wants his wine to be consumed in, so they probably don't want it being traded too much. They probably just wanted with their passionate consumers rather than being stuck in a warehouse and the NFT of it being traded. Would you agree with that argument?
Yes, exactly. But I mean, they know that there is a secondary market. They don't want the wine to be stored in a warehouse. But some people, they want to age the wine. Sometimes when you buy the wine when it's very young, you have to age the wine like 10 years or 15 years, and it's better if it's stored in a warehouse or at the producer, and you have to wait for it. And you don't want to have the wine in your private cellar because you don't have a private cellar, or you don't have much more space in your apartment or in your flat. So we are solving a lot of issues from the brand perspective. And it's kind of the same question you asked Anita about the artist. I started 5 years ago to sell fine wine in cryptocurrency, and at the beginning they were just like, okay, you are mad, we don't want to do that with you, and so on. But I have to explain the problem that we are solving. So for some brands, the problem is the visibility on their distribution, because fine wine is the last luxury industry in which the brands don't have any access to the customers. If you go to Rolex store or to I don't know, Aston Martin or Louis Vuitton, the brand has direct access to the consumer. If you go to Chateau Cheval Blanc or Petrus, you cannot go without any recommendation, and you cannot buy directly wine. There are a lot of intermediaries. So they have, with the blockchain, they have the direct visibility on the consumer, and it's a very big point. And they can also, if they don't want some secondary markets, okay, but they will have some royalties on the secondary market. So there are a lot of issues, even from a consumer perspective.
Walk us through how a leading vineyard has direct access or direct connection with the end consumer. Is it through like a QR code that the end consumer sitting in a restaurant can scan, and then the vineyard gets to know who's consuming it, in which location? Is that sort of how they're engaging with their end consumers?
There are three parts in our industry, but it can fit to other luxury and physical industries. We have the mint, so it's the first sale from the producer to the consumer. We have the secondary market on our marketplace, so it means that the people, they can trade, they can exchange the wine on the marketplace, and the physical wine remains at the winery. And then, if they want to get delivered, the NFT is burned. And then there is what we call the tertiary market. So you have a QR code on the bottles. It depends on the technology, and of course they can see where the bottles are scanned and so on. But their main concern is to fight against, especially for the high range, to fight against the counterfeits. 30% of the top range wine in the world are fakes. So it's a big issue for them.
Yeah, that figure, I had about 25%, but you're probably right, it's probably closer to 30%. And what this all, from what I understand, what this also does is it allows a younger demographic to get in, someone who's not been a wine collector and is, you know, more Web3 native, more Gen Z. It allows that person to, you know, get a taste of the wine market by purchasing a digital collectible or an NFT. So I can create a digital wine cellar sitting anywhere in the world and not have to worry about, you know, storing it in the perfect temperature conditions or owning perhaps a wine chiller and those sort of issues, right?
Yes, so this is the second point. We are talking about the main challenge, which is the technology, and there is also the marketing and the user experience. So to target new customers, you have to offer something new. On the Web3 website, in the case of wine or other industry, you just buy the wine and then you get delivered, and there is nothing behind this. With the metaverse, so we can create a microverse. This is what we are preparing in our company. We are enhancing the consumer experience, which is the most important part. The young people, they don't know about the wine because it's not attractive. So we have to put some gamification in all the fields. So for example, in our case, we are using 3D assets, GLB assets, so the people can touch through their screen the bottles, and they have their own cellar that they can show to their friends. So user experience, in my opinion, is very important.
Right, and that's something that fashion brands are doing as well, Anita, and you've probably got some exposure to the fashion space. And those shoes, are they like, they look like a very digital collectible-ish sort of, pair of kicks. So I'm wondering if there's an NFT behind that. And yeah, what exactly are fashion brands doing in this space? Because it seems like all these big brands, obviously from a Nike and all these luxury brands, Louis Vuitton, they're coming into this space as well. There are Web3 native brands, clothing brands like DressX and Fabricant that are in this space. Now, is it a case of not wanting to be left behind, or are there actual use cases behind those digital collectibles?
Yeah, I had really high hopes for fashion, I would say back in 2021 and 2022, with respect to them entering the Web3 space. But I would say, unfortunately, what we did see a lot, and I have to be sort of candid about this, is that a lot of the legacy luxury brands that you might have heard of, any sort of monogram name, they came into the space, or even like a Lamborghini, Ferrari, they came into the space, but they came just to dip their toe in, and they left as soon as the markets turned. And unfortunately, for the typical collector, they remember that. So I know a lot of collectors in the space who won't touch something from a luxury brand because they just have been sort of burnt before. So like an Hermes, for example, will launch something and it's cool, it's great. They have the money and the aesthetic to launch something wonderful, but then their interest moves on because they have so much else going on. And so I have seen that happen a lot. But where I am optimistic is with the respect to the digital native brands like DressX, the two women who started that. So DressX creates NFT, really cool outfits that you can transpose on yourself in pictures. You might think, okay, who cares? But so much of us live our lives digitally. So what you can do is you can buy a wonderfully sculpted like outfit, cool sneakers that are transposed as an AR thing, and you own the piece and you can take pictures in it and they look really good. And these are digital native women, and they really, you can see if you've watched the company grow, they know what they're doing and they back it up. And the pricing is right and the communication is right. So I have more confidence in brands that start off in this space as opposed to other brands that are much more well-established, that are just sort of doing what ultimately ends up being a cash grab, or they just lose interest after a while.
So, about a year ago, I was having lunch with a friend back home in Mumbai, that's where I'm from, and I was telling this guy about DressX and Fabricant and how your digital avatar could own, digital clothing. And I got laughed out of the room. So it just sounds very out there, but do you think this is a sustainable business model? Are people going to buy a $50 pair of sunglasses for their digital avatars or clothes for their digital avatars? Or do you think, is this a trend that's just, it's past its prime?
Well, let's see. This particular company, those two have been around for 3 years, which in the crypto space is...
In a bear market.
In a bear market, in a time where there's economic tightening all around, and they're selling $50 to $75 digital dresses and jackets, and they are selling them. And so maybe they're not worldwide brands, but they're continuously creating new collaborations. And then if you also think about how much time we all spend online, and even the people younger than us, I walked past a high school on my way here today, and everyone was on their phones. But they're documenting, they take more pictures than we do. And you need new outfits for that. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, that makes sense because 25 years ago, if someone told us that you'll take a picture of your food and post it online, people would laugh at us. And, two guys or two girls will go to the bathroom and take bathroom selfies. And people would be like, what the hell are you talking about? But this is a reality today and people do it. And the wonderful meal that I had with Mauricio yesterday is on my Instagram already. But as you rightly mentioned, that one of the problems is solving for the technology bit. And in your opinion, Vinny, which are some of the chosen L2 chains that brands are choosing to build on because Ethereum is really expensive and the gas fees is really high? So which chains are you optimistic about?
Well, since you asked me which ones I'm optimistic about, I cannot...
None?
No, I cannot say that the optimistic ones are not winning because they are the ones with the highest TVL. So today, if we agree that TVL is a criteria for us to measure success. So we have Optimism and Arbitrum as the two of the most TVL. And people that are...
What about Polygon?
Polygon, they have the POS, that's a sidechain, and they are building their layer 2s. They are going to be zero knowledge layer 2s, or they are already deployed. They are already live. And zero knowledge is the technology that people say that's going to be the future, because once you are able to build the proof, the zero knowledge proof, you're going to have transactions fast. So today they're a bit expensive, but the technology is improving very fast, and most likely the future is going to be dominated in the layers 2s with zero knowledge technology. But today the optimistic rollups are winning.
What's your view on Solana? No one has mentioned Solana here so far. The token is up like 500% this year itself. They've got their own marketplace. Magic Eden started off on Solana and now it's cross-chain. What's your view on that chain? Because they seem to be, I don't know what's going on with that chain, but they seem to be attracting a decent amount of talent as well.
So other L1s, people usually complain about decentralization or lack of security, and they argue that, okay, they can scale, they can have more throughput, but they have disadvantage. My point of view is that we are going to have a multi-chain future, but with chains that are specialized in different segments or different verticals, and people will be able to benefit from what they offer. So today there are chains that may be less secure, but they are cheaper. So if you are playing games with blockchain, those chains can be useful for you.
How is that different from just a database? Then why do you need a blockchain if it's not secure, if the transaction throughput is high? Then may as well just use a Web2 database, right? Why do you need a blockchain for that?
That's a good question. When we are in a bull market, people want to use blockchain for everything, and sometimes they should not, because blockchain is not the best answer for them.
One of the earlier panelists talked about, I mean, is Web3 solving this problem? But you know, if it's a really fast chain and if it's only solving for one or two of the blockchain trilemma.
During the bull market, we see a lot of FOMO. So the CEOs, the CEO asks the technical team, so what are we going to do about blockchain? Everybody's using blockchain. So they are on the headlines, so we have to do something. So do something with blockchain. But it's not how we should make decisions. So how could we benefit from blockchain? And does it make sense? Because in most of the case, it does not. If you cannot benefit from the blockchain values, capabilities, and advantages, you should not use it, because most likely it's going to be complex, it's going to be risky, it's going to be expensive, and you
might get hacked.
Eventually, you can get hacked. So sometimes we have to ask them and play the devil's advocate. Do you really benefit from blockchain? Do you really need blockchain? Otherwise, you're going to be much better off with just traditional solutions.
Yeah, and Louis, you mentioned that since ETH layer 1 is expensive, and if you're selling a $200 bottle of wine and someone's paying $50 in gas fee, it's not making sense for someone who's the end consumer. So are you considering moving your platform, or at least adding multi-chain capability to your marketplace, and which chain are you choosing?
Yes, that's what I said, is we are considering like Arbitrum, Polygon, of course. And I think that we are a Web3 native company. I used to trade fine wines 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, I don't remember. But it's a good point to evolve with the technology. So we are observing this kind of adaptability with our own company, but also with the wineries that we are launching. So as you said, you made the difference between big luxury brands and Web3 native brands. For example, we launched some big brands like Champagne Carbone. It's the official supplier of Formula One. But recently, we launched a winery. It's a former executive of Apple. He bought 1 hectare in Saint-Émilion in Bordeaux, and he turned completely to the NFT. So I think that we will evolve with all our industry, our ecosystem. So it's a good point to change your mind. So we started with Ethereum, and of course we are considering moving on other blockchain, but we are still on Ethereum basis.
Are there any regulatory challenges that you face? For example, let's say I'm sitting in Saudi Arabia where alcohol is illegal and I have a digital wine cellar, but I want to now consume the bottle of wine. So I can send that NFT to a burn address, but I can't redeem that bottle of wine. So are there situations that like that you're coming across, and how are you solving that logistic problem and regulatory problem?
It's an issue linked to the regular, the current alcohol industry. It's not linked directly to the NFT. The NFT solves some problem like that. So, of course, also we have some problem regarding VAT, regarding storage, and the NFT is good for this because you make more liquidity. And we have the example of Chinese people. They can't. It's very difficult to export fine wines for direct consumers, so they invest in the wine and then they just resell the wine, and if they want to be redeemed, they can be delivered in Hong Kong, for example. So we have to, use different ways, but we are more, NFTs in our case is more solving problems than raising issues.
And Anita, as the regulatory landscape for digital assets change, and since you're advising so many Web3 projects, what strategies do you think Web3 projects should take into account before they launch their project on your platform?
It's really challenging because, as was mentioned by a previous panel, legislation is so choppy, and most jurisdictions around the world actually don't have clear regulations. So, at least in the United States, the status quo is to legislate by prosecuting. And so, unfortunately, what we've actually seen is some of the regulators come after specific, even NFT projects and other DeFi projects, and you even have the creators of some DeFi protocols behind bars right now. So I would say my advice is to any founder, no matter where you are, is to really strongly consider where your project is based. So is found where your actual company is domiciled, because that's going to determine who can come after you. I'm American, but my company is not founded there, and that's one of the reasons, because there's no clear regulation. I would love to have launched truly in the United States, but even on the platform, we really can't allow US customers, for example. So just staying really abreast or staying alert and understanding that there is always a risk when you're a pioneer, which you are if you're a founder. So, but be mindful of where you base your company, because at some point the laws might change. Yeah.
Do you think, and just we're coming to the end of our panel, but since you're from the US, do you think with the recent news with Binance, with CZ being arrested and the $4 billion fine, this sets the stage for cleaning up the space, getting BlackRock to getting the ETF approved, and with the U.S. elections next year as well? Do you think the stage is set for cleaning the space out so there can be more positive regulation around this space?
I want to say yes, but I haven't seen that to be the case per se. There's a lot of activity around regulating crypto in the United States, but it's very choppy, and it seems to be that they're clearing the way for the incumbents, so the banks, for example, and the big names that are already there to do what they want to do, but they still haven't given any rules or guidance for any of the new builders in this space. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's a bit chaotic at the moment. I would hope to see that they would, sort of take crypto seriously in a way that is allowing us to build and not forcing us to go overseas.
Right. And final question, 5 years from now, where do you see your specific niche and Web3? Do you think it's just going to be smooth sailing? Do you think you're still going to be grappling with some of these issues 5 years from now? You can talk about your niche or any specific niche that you're interested in.
I think it's difficult to answer, but I would say something maybe when you are launching a project in the Web3, it's a kind of advice, and it's also answering a question. I think that before making any forecast, you need to focus on the community. We did not go deeply in the community side, but it's very important in the Web3. I think it's better to build a community before launching a project like a marketplace, a metaverse, and so on. It's to gather people, and this is the key point of the Web3. This is also property, but community. So I think that community is the best point to imagine what will be the future. And they have some ideas. through the DAO and so on. So yes, community first.
Vinny, what are your thoughts?
I think that in the 5 years, I would be very happy if we have more mainstream adoption for blockchain. The blockchain is more integrated into our society, and the society as a whole can benefit from what blockchain can offer. Also, the blockchain ethos can permeate more where we are, who we are, and how we work. And I think that it will be very beneficial for all of us.
Anita, final thoughts?
Yeah, I would say going back to the regulation, I would love to see a future with clear regulation so that the real innovation can go and spread throughout the world.
Yeah, so it seems like Web3 needs this ChatGPT moment where everybody's like, this makes sense. And, suddenly you have lots and lots of people using it, and it's solving real world use cases as well. And we can only hope that the time comes sooner rather than later. And on that thought, I'd like to open up the floor for some questions. Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Thank you for an interesting panel. I represent a few startups in blockchain space as well as an investor, and I have such a question about your ideas, how the blockchain Web3 technologies could help to solve the ecological problems, because it's very important for all of us, like environment pollution, climate change. Just give you ideas or maybe some good examples of such startups. But if some of you would like to discuss, I have a good example how blockchain could help people to change the behavior, how people can change their behavior to sustainable when people impact and earn.
Actually, brands like DressX claim they're doing that because there's so much clothing people buy, and it's not good for the environment, right? So what they're saying is that by digital fashion as opposed to real, actual, fashion, tangible fashion, and that solves, or at least it moves us in the direction of sustainability. That's one of the brands that I've come across that claims that. And there's some crazy statistic about how much water is used when you're, how many chemicals are used when you're producing actual clothes. So DressX is one of them who's attempting to do that, but I'll let you guys answer this question.
I have a few examples. I'll be quick. So in supply chain, you can monitor the whole chain and have the carbon footprint monitored, so it can help us first. Second, another use case that we know is that when you have to certify carbon credits, usually it's a very expensive, bureaucratic, complex, and corruption-prone process. So blockchain is being implemented, so you have IoT devices being installed in carbon credit emission devices like stoves. And you can monitor the stove, how much the stove is being used, how it's being used. So for carbon credit certification. And the third one is the carbon credit trading. So we have large companies already on the blockchain space, minting and trading and using carbon credit in the blockchain. So I think that those three cases can help in the sustainability.
Is there a lot of greenwashing that happens in this carbon credit blockchain space?
I'm not an expert, but I'm sure there is.
Thank you.
I have an example from my industry. I look forward to hear your ecological solution that the blockchain solves. But in my industry, there is something simple. I talked about secondary market, but when a bottle is traveling across the globe from Hong Kong to London to Paris, first it can be damaged, and second the ecological footprint is very bad. So with the digital twin, there is no movement of the physical assets. So here it's kind of contribution to the ecological footprint.
That's a good example. Anybody else? One gentleman right there.
You were talking about lifestyle and people who maybe don't want to think about Web 2 or Web 3, they just want to use this technology. And the question is, what would you advise to people who want to start using Web3 in their life, who want maybe to buy NFTs or something? Maybe you can advise some first steps, or what is your ideas about it? Just for newcomers, for
anyone?
I would say if you're interested in NFTs,
no, just imagine that we have a person who doesn't know anything, but he knows that it's a new trend, and maybe some clothing for his avatar, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But just to make first steps.
yeah, I would say think about something that you might want to buy irrespective of Web3. So if you're a gamer, that's a good place to start, or if you're into fashion, or just think about something you'd actually want to buy
Hobby.
and then find it in the Web3 space and then try to do it. So it's the best way to learn something, like again, I've taught many people, but when they actually learn is when they do it themselves. So for example, if you are interested in any of the fashion things, also pick a price point that's pretty low because you're just getting to know things. Go try to buy a pair of digital sneakers. Go to DressX, for example. They're a good company, but find a brand and follow the instructions on their site. If the instructions aren't clear, it's a very Web3 thing to do. Go to their community and just ask. I think that's one of the coolest things about Web3 versus Web2. You can talk directly to the companies no matter how big they are. They have a whole community manager there. No, in the Web2 space, I can't find my way to speak to someone at Nike ever, but you can go there and say, hey, I don't understand this, and someone will get back to you at any point of the day and literally walk you through. They might even get on a Zoom call with you. So actually, I would say just try to do it, and if you have any friction, stop and ask them for help, because that's their job.
The question was because lots of investors who have money, but they don't know how to start. And they come to us, they want crypto license, email license, or something else, but they don't understand anything. That's why I asked this question. We need to advise something to them and need to.
Yes, I think there's a learning curve. I think there's a learning curve with Web3 because the ideas are so different from what we're used to, you know, decentralization, NFTs. There's so many different ideas. So I think education is a big thing. Specific resources that have helped me because I've been in this space for the last 4 years. Specific resources that have helped me is CoinDesk, Cointelegraph, YouTube, following the right people on Twitter, Decrypt. So if you just seek out, and MetaMask Learn as well. So if you just follow these specific resources as a beginner, and just not try and rush your learning and take the next 6 months, 8 months, a year, because it does take time to wrap your head around a lot of this. So if you just take time and be patient, eventually it starts to make sense, and then you'll find yourself going down some of these rabbit holes. Some of the best articles that I've read are on Twitter, now X. Some of the best people that I've followed and become friends with have been also on Twitter. And I think it just helps you go down the rabbit hole. You'll read the right books. You'll, meet the right people. Go to conferences like Madeira Blockchain Conference, where you can interact with people. It's a slow process. I'm sorry, I don't have a easy fix, silver bullet answer. It's really a process that one has to go through if they want to educate themselves. And over time, this starts to make sense. And that learning is a lot better as well, as opposed to just trying to rush and maybe purchase something. That's one of the things you can definitely do, but I would encourage everyone to just educate themselves who are entering in this space.
I think that I agree with you, of course. It's important to read some things and so on, but I would say that my advice, of course, even if you invest a little bit of money, I think it's important to go directly, to dive directly. You cannot play poker without money, but if you put a little bit of money, you will learn faster. So my advice is to go directly, even if it's a small amount, but just to dive.
So for example, if one wants to invest in some cryptocurrencies, maybe a MetaMask Learn can help you how to set up your MetaMask wallet, or some YouTube videos can help you learn that. So the initial stage is reading up on it, learning it, and then I think what Louis is saying is you learn by doing. So take baby steps, and then maybe start putting in a little bit of money. It could be $10, $20, $30. Maybe you buy a token and you swap a certain token, on MetaMask. But for that, you need to open up an account on like an exchange first and transfer some money from there, onto your MetaMask wallet. So all these are steps you learn as you go through. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but I guess they have to start somewhere, and for a rank beginner, they would have to start at one of these resources and then perhaps start. Or if you've got a friend who can help you set up set up a MetaMask wallet or something, that's even easier. That enhances and just expedites your learning curve.
And I would add, if you really, like a tangible place to send them could also be a launch pad. So essentially what launch pads are is what they're platforms that curate early stage projects. So again, this is not for beginners, but if you have someone who wants to do something, so they're gatekeepers that curate projects that are about to launch, and they'll help you help your people or understand the story behind it, and they have a mechanism by which they can directly invest. Now, there's a risk involved. I'm not saying it's not risky, but that's a tangible thing. It's time sensitive, so it's something where you can put it in your calendar and say, there's going to be a launch in 5 days. If you want to do this, follow the instructions. And by the nature of launchpads, their whole job is to explain to you how to do it, so they're going to have certain rules. But at the end of this, they would have purchased an asset, whether it's an NFT or the tokens in this individual project. But again, it's not the simplest thing to do. If they want to just buy crypto, there's other ways, I would say. But if they want to really jump into it and learn, they're going to learn a lot because it's fast-paced, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of help there too. So look into Web3 launchpads.
Thank you.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Hi there. I just want to ask a question on the NFTs and the way it's been done at the moment. And I feel, and I run a company, a blockchain company, and we actually provide NFTs, and we do that, but we don't talk about NFTs. And for the simple reason is we look at what the need is and what you're trying to achieve, what the solution you're actually providing. And if you look at an NFT is effectively like an engine in a car. And I think in the blockchain space, we're trying to create a lot of engineers rather than people who just drive the car. Yeah? And we need to look at what the solution is that we're providing rather than the technology behind it. We're trying to sell, like somebody said, the HTML or the CSS or whatever it is that's writing the code of Web 2. We don't. We want to just have the solution. What is the solution it provides? If you're selling fashion, what are you providing in fashion? What are you offering, or your wines or whatever? You sell the wines and you utilize a technology that makes it easier for people to transact. I mean, opening a MetaMask account in all reality is far easier than going to a bank and opening a bank account in Portugal. I've just done that. Yeah? It's not that difficult task, but there's a mental block because people start talking about, oh, it's Web3, oh, it's crypto, oh, it's that. And there's this mental block that people get. And if you just rather concentrate on what the solution you're providing, an easy means of transferring funds, or an easy means of obtaining your wine or obtaining fashion, that's the crux of it. But I think too much focus is spent on the technology, not the solution that's being provided at the end of the day.
But you have to mention the Web3, even for the marketing part and so on, because there is traction for investors, consumers. They want to try something. So of course you have to focus on the solution, but you have to mention that you're in the Web3.
You have to mention it, but it doesn't have to become, you've done it yourself, and that you call your NFT a token.
Digital twin, yeah.
A digital twin. So it's taking, what I'm saying is that there's too much emphasis put on the technology, and I was listening to a speaker the other day, at a conference similar to this, I was listening online, and she came up and she says, why are we even talking about NFTs?
I think that's the natural arc of evolving technology. If you look at the early days of the internet, I'm going back to 1995, 1996, we used to call the internet the information superhighway, and we had all these ridiculous terms, right? But now it's just the internet. We started chatting on ICQ, and we started and then you had the dot-com boom and bust, where a lot of these business models failed, but then you had Amazon, Google, Facebook, all these companies that emerged out of that dot-com boom and bust in 99, 2000. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but I guess when something's so new, people tend to focus on the technology and less, and that's how it attracts the cyberpunks, the tech savvy. And what it arguably did in 2020, 2021 what NFTs did was it allowed mainstream brands to sort of experiment with the space and dip their toes in the space. And I think moving forward, you're absolutely right. We should be focusing more on what problems, and that's one of the questions once the hype died down in 2022, right? Okay, like the hype is over, the $200,000 JPEG photos, with BAYC, okay, that hype is hopefully gone. All these NFTs, Dogecoin, all these super speculative assets, they're gone. But now can we start building something real that solves my problem? Which is why I said it probably needs its ChatGPT moment where people go, okay, this is really solving this problem for me, and this is 10x better than what existed in the past, and that's why I want to use it, rather than this is just another fancy term that kind of like frankly intimidates most people.